Hi, everybody. Michael Buffalo Smith here, the ambassador of Southern Rock with the official YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in for my interview with Shaun Murphy. Shaun Murphy, I first became aware of years ago. She did an album back, I think it was 1970 or 71. She recorded an album with Meat Loaf called Stoney and Meat Loaf. A really good album, and it was on the Motown record label. And of course, his career took off after that, as did hers when she started going under her real name instead of Stoney. She decided to go by Shaun Murphy. And Shaun Murphy has recorded with a veritable who's who of great classic rock stars. She's recorded and toured with Eric Clapton, and she's recorded and toured with Bob Seger many times, even as recently as 2019. She was on tour with the great Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. She's also done lots of musical theater and released a whole bunch of solo albums. And lest we forget, she was a member of the band Little Feat for a whole lot of years and recorded some really, really great stuff with Little Feat. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about her solo albums and her latest release and much, much more. If you like this and you like our other interviews, do me a huge favor, please, and hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button will fix it so that you will get a notification first whenever we post anything new to this channel. Interviews, features, all of that stuff. And it'll help me too, because it helps me to stay in touch with the people who are interested in what I am doing. And I greatly appreciate it. And speaking of stuff that I'm doing, please stay tuned at the end of this video. Watch. There'll be a little bit of a teaser thing at the end about my books and CDs. And you can order those just all over the place. But we've got 10 books, and I have my two most recent CDs available here. And like I say, I always say that you can order them different places, but I do have some books, and I do have the two most recent CDs if you want to order straight from me. And also, if you want it signed or signed to somebody, happy to do it. Whatever you want, I'm happy to oblige. So, without further ado, hit that subscribe button. Did I say that already? Please subscribe. And without further ado, we go to the beautiful and wonderful, incredible blues singer, award-winning Shaun Murphy. Okay.
Yep, I saw the little light go on.
It did. It did. And here we are with Shaun Murphy. Not to be confused with Shaun Murphy from The Good Doctor, because if you Google her now, you get all these pictures of that guy from The Good Doctor, because they named his character after her.
And don't forget the snooker player in England.
Yeah, exactly. The snooker player. This is crazy. Well, I mean, it could be worse. You could be Michael Smith.
Yeah, there might be some problems with that.
Yeah, mine, that's why I put the Buffalo in there, because it was like, it's the only way to distinguish me from the 5 billion other Michael Smiths.
Yep.
All right, Shaun, let's go all the way back. Let's go back a year or two. Tell me a little bit about how you first became interested in music, and also, was your first interest in music or theater or both?
Pretty much both. I started in school, and I did some summer stock in my hometown, and then when I moved to Detroit, I started again in music. Finished my my high school year there in Detroit, and started doing music in school theater. My boyfriend at the time and I had a little duo, and then when I graduated, we went our separate ways, and I was able to join a couple of different bands in town. So it just kept on, and I sort of gravitated away for a while from theater. Was called back in '69 when I joined the Hair Troupe in Detroit and did the run of the play there, and then went off to do it in Broadway, and then in the show in Washington D.C. So
Oh, that's
just kept
great.
going on and on. Yeah.
Well, tell me, I'm a big fan of Meat Loaf. Okay, tell me about how you first hooked up with Meat Loaf, and also where did the name Stony come from?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Stony came from. I never thought I'd be in the entertainment field, and back when I lived in Iowa, I knew a friend that had a band, and he called himself Stony. I thought that's a cool name. So when I started doing music, I said, well, I'm not going to really do this for forever, so I'm just going to use Stony. I think that's kind of a cool name. So that's how that came about, which I
Right.
ended up dropping about 8 years later when I figured out that yeah, I guess I'm going to do this for a living. But Meat Loaf. Meatloaf and I were in different bands together in Michigan, and if you know anything about back in the '60s in Michigan, there were so many bands, and every single festival that came to Detroit, we were all on there in different, in different stages. So we got to play it a lot together back in the '60s, and then of course he ended up in Hair, and I went down to audition, and I got up on stage, and I could hear somebody in the audience. It was all dark except for the stage, and he said, "There she is!" And apparently, he had told the people that were auditioning, everybody, that he knew somebody that would be good for the play, but he just didn't know how to get a hold of me, and so. We ended up doing Hair there in New York, and again together in Washington D.C. So, but he's now moved to Nashville, and I haven't seen him yet. But we've been vowing to get together
Oh,
once
really? I
this
didn't know that.
business is all. Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. The well, you guys ended up recording for Motown. That's interesting. Uh,
we did. I think it was opening night of Hair in Detroit. There were some Motown people in the audience, and even though we didn't have any scenes together, um, I think they liked the name, as well as our voices, Stony and Meat Loaf. So they said, yeah, let's put those two together. And they offered us a contract, and we put out a record, which went maybe nowhere. A few
well, it went.
collectors have it.
I bought it when it came out. It's
Oh,
like,
God bless you.
yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, man. I thought it was real cool. I think there were a couple of different album covers on the thing.
Well,
Seems mine
well,
had a picture of
somebody,
meat.
yeah,
I mean,
yes,
actual food meatloaf.
I know. I think I've seen that too. There was some subsidiary or some lower budget record company bought out the record, and what they did was they put Meatloaf on the cover, and they took out most of my lead vocals on it.
Oh,
So
wow.
you'd hear Meat singing, and then where I was singing a verse, there would be like instrumental, and then I'd come back in if we were doing some harmony or back, choruses. It
Wow,
was the
that's real
weirdest
nice.
thing. Yeah. So anyway, Meatloaf got a chance to quelch all that. So those are really hard to come by.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully,
Wow.
thankfully.
Yeah, no doubt. Now on some of these, I'm sure I've got the timeline all wrong, but forgive me for that. I'm just going to ask about different things throughout your career, and I'm sure they're not in chronological order. Another person that you worked with along the line was Eric Clapton, and of course, everybody loves Eric Clapton. Tell us a little bit about working with him.
Well, just a backtrack a little bit, I met Marcy Levy,
Right.
Marcella Detroit. I met her when she was working. When I first joined Bob Seger back in the '70s, and we got to be good friends. And of course, she went off to work with Leon and yada yada yada. And she eventually started working with Eric, and Yvonne Elliman, and they worked together for a long, long time. Um, at some point, she had left, and not sure exactly what that was. And I'm not really great on chronology either. So um, she Eric called her and said, "Look, I'm doing this record with Phil Collins, and I wanted to know if you wanted to be on it, singing some backgrounds." And she said, "Yeah, of course." And he said, "Well, do you know any other women with strong voices that we might try and look into?" So she says, "I absolutely do." And she called me right up and um, gave them my name, and they called me and said, "Do you want to do this record?" And I said I couldn't get yes out fast enough. Went down to Montserrat, which is right around Antigua,
Mm.
and recorded the record there, Behind the Sun. And after the first song, Eric came in to us and said, "Look, um, would you guys like to go on the road with us and support this record when we release it?" And we said, "Yes, absolutely." So that's how that happened.
Mm. Well, that's very interesting. Um, I mean, your resume is pretty impressive, obviously. Another super, super, super great guy, Bob Seger. Tell us a little bit about him and how you hooked up with him.
Well, again, going back to the '60s, we did a lot of shows together, um, and he of course was on the festival circuit as well, uh, and I was on those bills, um, and then I started having some bookings by his manager, Punch Andrews. He had a lot of clubs in town, so I went into I didn't have the latest check, so I knew Punch was going to be at this one of his clubs, so I went in there. And Bob was in the back room, so I got a chance to meet him there. And who should be playing was Cream. So it was like a perfect storm. I absolutely got to meet both of them at the same night, although obviously I didn't work with them right away. But later, when Bob actually, you know, knew me, he said, "We're going to do some recording. Do you want to come in and do that?" So I did. And then later on, I think the first one was Kathmandu. And then, of course, I was in some local bands, yada, yada, yada. And I moved to Florida, I want to say early '73 or something like that. Bob called and he said, "Look, we're going to be going on the road. We just lost our one of our background singers. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, background singing doesn't sound so hard. Sign me up." So I drove back and started working with Bob, and I worked with Bob almost entirely up until the last date of his last show, which was November 1st of last year.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I wanted so badly to see him when he came to Greenville, South Carolina last year, and a friend of mine went and told me it was just off the chain. He said that it's rare that you get to see a show this as long as the show that Bob does, and
Mm-hmm.
every song is a hit.
Yep.
Every single song. Don't even talk in between them. Just go from one to the next to the next. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you got to have a lot of songs to be able to do that, man. A lot of
I
hits.
remember when we played in Boston, you could hardly hear Bob because the audience was so loud.
No doubt. No doubt.
What a
Oh,
tribute.
I've never been lucky enough to see Seeger. It took me until a couple of years ago to see Springsteen, who was another favorite. But
Oh,
I
love
always wanted to see
Bruce.
Bob so much. I wanted to see Bob. The moving right along to one of the greatest concerts I saw. You were in it, and
Oh,
in the '90s, and it was Little Feat and BB King in Charlotte, and
Yes.
and man, and I actually had press credentials, and I met you that night and shook your hand. I
Oh,
didn't get a picture because I didn't have a camera with me, but I got to meet you and Bill Payne and everybody, and of course BB, and
yes. What
which
a
it
nice man.
was a sweetheart, wasn't
Yeah. Hmm.
he? And man, golly, what a legend! Wow. But yeah, you guys ruled the roost that night. I was just,
Well, thank
I
you.
was tickled to death. It was great. As the first time I'd actually seen you sing live, and I was kind of completely blown away. Um, Tell me about Little Feat. How you hooked up with them? I mean, what a legendary band that is.
Uh, Ever so much. I want to say 86. Bob Seger was going out on tour and thinking it might be his final tour, even back then, and because he wanted to retire and raise his kids. Um, so that was his thinking, I think, in the back of his head. So he said, "You know what? I've had all these great players on all my records, and I want to invite them out to be on the road with us on this last tour." And two of the people were Bill Payne and Fred Tackett. So that's how I met them. Later on, after that tour ended, he Bill and Fred and everybody decided, well, let's reform, and they did Let It Roll, and they asked Bob and I to come in and sing some backgrounds. So we did that, and then Bob got fired, and I went on to do some more backgrounds on the next two records. Finally, they were in between record companies, so they were doing some recording at home, and getting it ready for the next round, as it were. So they called me. I lived not too far from Paul Barrere at the time, out in LA, and they called me up and said, "Look, we're going to be doing some recording at Paul's house. What do you think? You want to come over and sing some backgrounds for us?" I said, "Sure." So I drove over and did the first day, and they liked it. And at the end of that first day, they said, "We have this one song, but we don't think any of the guys can cut it." And at that point, I thought Craig Fuller was just not there, because he lived in, I think he was living in Georgia somewhere. So I just figured, a lot of singers. And so I went to, I grabbed the CD and went home and studied it and came back and sang it. It was Romance Without Finance. And they said, "Well, just try it and see how it sounds." So did the track. And then they said, "Well, we want to know what you would think if you found yourself in the middle of nowhere on a bus with 12 other guys." That's how they asked me to join the band. So that was 93. And we did Ain't Had Enough Fun. And then by 94, we were starting to tour. And that's actually when we met up with BB King. Yeah. And started doing a few dates with him. So that's where you saw us.
Yeah, 94. I remember that.
Yep. So I was with them almost 16 years.
Wow.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I just get all excited thinking about it. I was always a Little Feat fan anyway, and a Lowell George fan and all that. Oh. But I just love the stuff that you did too. I can't remember the name. It seems like the record company might have been CMC or something. I can't remember what the record company was that right after you joined full fledged. But whoever it was, they sent me a bunch of the CDs to give away through my magazine, and yeah. The band had all autographed them and all. So I've got one of those over here on the shelf, which is kind of cool. But I'm as you can tell by looking behind me, I'm kind of a pack rat a little bit. I don't let go of anything. I hold on to books, yep. Records, and it's a curse, but a blessing and a curse. I wanted to ask you. I mean, this is sort of a, I don't know, say a high school question or something, but the you've worked with so many people, it's almost hard to, you know, to mention all of them. But just tell me a couple of your individual highlights of your career so far. Just things that really jump right into your mind, as you know, as far as just
Mm.
being moments, aha moments, or whatever.
Well, the first one that always jumps to mind is Live Aid. I
Oh,
was working with Clapton at the time, and we came on. It was July, maybe 19th or something. I can't remember the exact day it was, but it was 99 degrees, so hot, and over 100,000 people in the audience. Um, it, I've never had a feeling like that in my entire life or since. When we walked out on stage, the roar from the audience became physical, and it pushed everybody back a step. It
ooh,
was just the most amazing thing. And of course, Live Aid was just phenomenal, and
amazing.
so many
Yeah.
stars. Oh my God.
I was glued to my television from start to finish.
No
Um,
kidding.
oh no,
Wow.
I just sat there and watched the entire thing. Now I'm happy to say a friend of mine got it for me on DVD, recorded on DVD, on
Wow.
several DVDs.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna
yeah, I got to
say.
go back and look at it because I wasn't even aware that you were on that. Now I got to go look for you. Uh, go, uh,
And of course, Phil Collins flew
yeah,
from
yeah, that was a great story, wasn't it?
flew
Played in
in, and he played
two
with us.
places. Yeah.
Hmm.
What was the other one? Was in England, right?
Yes.
Yeah, or Great Britain. And then all the bands that were reuniting, like Zeppelin and everybody. I mean,
Hmm.
what a great thing! And that was also the first time I ever saw U2. And boy,
Oh
they
wow.
just really, really put it out there.
They did. They did.
Everybody was just so good that day.
Yeah. The only one that I felt that was really left out was Steve Marriott.
Oh yeah,
Um, he should have been on that. He should have been on that.
that's true.
He should have been considered from the very, very beginning.
That's the
What a
truth.
what a talent. Love Steve Marriott.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. Um, we'll talk just a little bit about your solo work. Um, I was reading where you'd won just numerous awards for your solo albums and stuff. How many solo albums have you recorded so far, Shaun?
Well, this one that I just put out on October 19th, "Flame Still Burns," is my 10th solo CD.
Wow,
So yeah.
that's a good one. I've already written an album review to go into the next magazine. I ended up
Oh,
getting it through
fabulous.
that AirPlay Direct. You know, I really like that service.
It's
Uh,
a great service, and I always encourage all independent artists to check out, because they've got tens of thousands of DJs they have access to,
yeah, see, I've got that account with
Like,
as
look at
far as
you.
yeah, I've got that account, and then I've just recently joined as an artist to promote my own album, which
Well,
is kind of like,
fantastic. I'm gonna have to look that up.
oh well, it's called Making It Back to Macon, and I've got a background singer on there by the name of E.G. Kite.
AG, love her.
Yeah, she
We're
speaks
very good
quite
friends.
highly of you, that's for sure. She asked me, I guess probably 4 or 5 years ago, when are you going to do an interview with Shaun? And I'm like, well, I want to. So I'm glad.
And here we are.
And here we are. It didn't take but 6 years, but I finally got around to it. That's kind of like par for the course. Um, Flame Still Burns is the latest album. Um, tell us just a little bit about that album, if you would. I mean, for people, I guess, who produced it, who played on it, etc.
Flame Still Burn came about. My manager and I were discussing. We had a lot of requests for people were asking for us to do a cover record, and of all things. So we said, let's just jump on it. I mean, we were not being able to get out and write and do all these other things that we normally do to put an album together. So we put together about 40 song list of potential candidates and narrowed it down to 14. And then we thought, well, we'll just do 12 and maybe we'll have a couple extra ready to go for the next record. But we ended up liking everything so much we couldn't leave any of the children out. So anyway, my wonderful band is on the record, as it have been for the last few records. I'm so thrilled with them. I have Tom Del Rossi on drums, John Marcus on bass, Kenny Kramer on guitar, Tommy Stillwell on guitar, and Eric Robert on B3, and Kevin McKendry is on all the piano. So it's a dream recording with all those guys. Always has been. So produced by T.C. Davis and Kenny Kramer as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kenny Kramer. I know his name from the past from somewhere.
Dr. Hook.
Oh, I got you. Oh, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
good.
He's been with Dr. Hook for a long, long time, till he passed.
Yeah, Ray Sawyer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I was just going to make a little side comment that the album, the whole thing is great, but you can't imagine how happy I was to hear you do a Greg Allman song. So
that was one that we tossed around because, I mean, it's like playing an Eric Clapton solo. I mean, you got the best of the best of the best, and of course Greg wrote it, and we didn't know if it was gonna I was gonna be able to serve the song as best that it could be. So it was always maybe a toss-up, but we ended up really liking it, so we ended up putting it on. I'm glad you like it.
That's great. It's fantastic, actually. All right, last question. Tell me a little bit. I mean, it's kind of hard to say the answer to this, given the current climate and everything, about your future and immediate and future plans. Hopefully everything with the COVID and all is getting ready to, go away and leave us alone. I think it will.
Yes.
I think that the vaccines and all that, I think it's going to get better and we're going to get back out. My prediction is next summer is going to be a rocking summer, I hope. But what are your future plans as far as recording and everything else?
Well, we are waiting with bated breath as well. I have, of course, I lost all my festivals for 2020, as did everybody practically. So one is still in the works is coming up in July. So we'll see what that happens. And of course, we're always open to have a booking and everything. My manager does all the booking as well. So we're looking to be positive and looking ahead to a good festival season, or at least a truncated festival season. But I'm going to retire when I'm dead. You know what I
mean? Yeah. That's a good philosophy. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate your time. That's going to wrap it up, and we'll get this all put together and get it out so that your fans can see it. And thank you so much for your time.
I really appreciate talking to you. And of course, everybody can find me at ShaunMurphyBand.com.
Yeah, they can.
On AirPlay Direct.
That's right. And ShaunMurphyBand.com has got lots of really great photographs, too. I was looking at all those today. So photographs and memories, all kinds of cool stuff. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you calling.
Thanks.
Okay.
About a baby I wonder why. Oh, I live on. Try to be strong. But it just ain't. I crossed the bed. No, it ain't now, baby.
Making it back to Macon. Give me some grits, gravy and bacon. Just a little something to tide me over. The Mama Louise and the H&H Open. She got fried chicken and pinto beans, hot cornbread, sweet iced tea. Everything that a body needs. That's why I'm making it